Let's talk about bad psychedelic trips, why they happen, how to avoid them, and why you don't have to be afraid of them. Hi, my name is Alexandra. I'm a psychology graduate and certified psychedelic integration coach, and I'm obsessed with helping you self-actualize through cutting-edge modalities like psychedelic-assisted therapy, like a bunch of tools that I've learned throughout my travels and years of personal development for a life worth living. So let's dive into today's topic because it kind of ruins the reputation of the industry, but also the reputation of doing the work, because so often psychedelics are promoted as this magic pill solution, and you might have heard quotes like, that was like 10 years of therapy in 5 hours. And that can happen, but that's not all that happens. Bad trips, A, they're very avoidable, and B, there's nothing such a bad trip. I had the most difficult psychedelic journeys of my life being the most life-changing and profound journeys of my entire life, because we can learn a lot from pain. But without spoiling the video, let's dive right in. Throughout the years that I've been doing my job and starting communities, offering harm reduction tips, helping people minimize risks and maximizing benefits while using psychedelics, many people have said things like, oh my gosh, I've tried mushrooms once and it was terrible and I'm never gonna do this again. Or my friends were taking a bunch of drugs in college and they had bad trips. Or the classic, aren't you afraid that someone's gonna jump out of a window? Now, if you asked me how can I have a bad trip? Alex, please give me the script to have a terrible trip on psychedelics. Then I would tell you, all right, then how about you do it for the first time in a place that you don't trust, like a party or a festival, among people you don't really know or trust, not knowing or trusting yourself because you're full of insecurities and fear and doubt, or you're peer pressured by your friends. How about you overdo it? Let's take too much, not test the substance. It can be something someone gave you that you don't even know or trust. Mix it with other substances like alcohol or even more drugs. And how about you just go on your own, no prep, just do that. And it's very likely you'll be paranoid. It's very likely you'll have a bad experience. It's very likely you will not want to do it again because they're potent psychological tools, and we're dealing with the psyche. Psychedelic, from Greek, which is my native language by the way, means manifesting what's in the psyche. If you have no understanding, you haven't recently checked in with yourself to know where you're at, what your psyche and your mind and your emotions are at, or if you're going through a phase where you're kind of depressed or anxious or overwhelmed, psychedelics might not be the best way to go about it, especially if you're planning to do it without professional support, because a lot of things might come up that you may not be ready to address or not have the tools to address. Now, I love to reassure everyone I know that everything is healable, everything is fixable when we know how to work with our mind, our emotion, our psyche. And this is why there's professionals like myself that are actually trained in psychedelic preparation. We work with people for months, and I've seen that people who have been doing inner work, becoming more self-aware for months or even years and years, tend to have way more profound psychedelic journeys because they know how to navigate their triggers and their voices in their heads. They might have done parts work before. They might have been meditating for years. So they know how to come back to a regulated center and face everything that's coming up in a psychedelic space as processes within them, as parts and voices and stories and trauma and memories, not as who they are. Now, another reason why I would not recommend doing psychedelics in an unsafe environment around people you don't trust, completely unprepared, is because psychedelics are also amplifiers. Psychedelics, even in microdosing capacity, may reduce anxiety and stress, may increase productivity and focus and the ability to access flow states, give you a boost in energy, in your mood. Yes, but what can also happen, and I've talked about this in the microdosing video, is that the negative emotions that you might be experiencing are amplified. And in that case, if you do not know how to come back to yourself, how to work through it, because psychedelics offer the opportunity to work things through, things that limit us and constrict us on a day-to-day because we try to repress them and run away from them and create coping mechanisms in order to avoid. And what creates suffering is not feeling the pain, not feeling our emotions, is actually all this resistance and effort that we put into not feeling our emotions. So that's why psychedelics are used in therapy. They amplify emotions, whether that's negative or positive, and then that creates an opportunity to work through it and move into a new phase of life, into the next chapter of our lives. There's this quote that I really like. It was Gabor Mate that said it, that says, the fear that you don't face becomes your limits. When we live lives that are unconscious, and this is why psychedelics are a catalyst for therapy, because they help us become conscious much faster. We are just avoiding being triggered. We are building lives around not feeling the things that we don't want to feel. But that keeps us kind of in a loop, kind of like short-circuiting between stimuli and response. Someone triggers us and us like pulling back or withdrawing or eating or drinking or distracting and numbing out. And that is the opposite of growth. Many of us in this path, in the personal development and healing path, we realize that actually the only way out is through. And that's where psychedelics, even when they amplify negative emotions, offer a unique opportunity to heal something, to actually move through something without feeling triggered. Being able to work with something painful, whether that's a childhood trauma or a relationship issue with someone else or with ourselves, but without feeling triggered and pulling back. Topic of the day, focus, Alex. The number one thing that can help you have a better trip and mitigate the risks of bad trips is to learn the basics of set and setting. Now, I have a free 6-page guide about this that I'm going to link in the description that goes into more detail than this video. But basically, set means mindset and setting means the outer environment that you're in. So you need to take care of both and prepare both before a psychedelic journey. Regarding mindset, what could be things or influences that's gonna have an effect on your mind on the day of the psychedelic experience? That could be things like news or gossip or conversations or information that you've been consuming on the days or hours prior to the experience. That might still be in the surface of your mind, and that might play a role in the psychedelic journey that you're gonna have. So you wanna make sure that you're almost decluttering yourself from negative input and taking some time to reflect, what am I here to do? Because as we've said, psychedelics are amplifiers, and they will amplify what's in the psyche, what's in the mind, because where your focus goes, energy flows, as that famous saying says. But also you can use that to your advantage by setting an intention. If you were to set a direction for your journey, what would it be? Maybe you're here to explore something specific, a specific topic, and that could be something like your mommy issues. Welcome to the club. It might be a relationship issue. It might be a problem that you're navigating that you would like some more clarity on. It might be just getting to know yourself better, which is my way of partying. I can never have enough of getting to know myself on a deeper and deeper level. There's a universe within, so much to explore, so many parts of you to meet, that is just the best thing you can ever do in life, to be honest. So everything you consume or think or the information that you absorb leaves an imprint on your internal environment, and that might be amplified or might be used as content in your psychedelic journey. Here are some practices that you can take up on the days prior in order to create a better inner environment or mindset before a psychedelic journey. You can adopt some calming practices. You can spend some time in nature, ideally by yourself without any outside input. So no podcast, no music. Just be with yourself and with nature itself and see what comes up. Because imagine it's going to be similar to this, but a much more amplified experience when you are on a psychedelic journey. So what is it like when you spend time with yourself? And something that I love to say is that during death, birth, and the psychedelic experience, we're with no one but ourselves. Even if you are to journey with your friends, it's really just gonna be you and yourself, because it's just you and your psyche, and your inner world will be so amplified that it's not gonna matter who you're there with, unless you're there with a bunch of people that you cannot trust. Then it's very likely that you will not be able to surrender to the experience, because you'll be too preoccupied with not trusting and being afraid and overwhelmed by the environment. The more you trust the environment that you're in, including yourself and how much you've prepared, but also the outside environment, the more you can surrender to the experience and let go. And it is that quality of surrender, it is when we get to do that, that we have the most profound journeys. My personal experience has been, in the last couple of years, I've actually been able to surrender more in the presence of a trusted facilitator than myself. Even if I take, say, mushrooms at home by myself, a part of me, the little control freak, and the part that's actually the adult will almost keep guard. Like, is anyone gonna knock on the door? Or what is that sound out of the window? When you are with a professional that you trust, a sitter, a facilitator, then you know that you're in good hands. And I highly recommend that you talk to them beforehand. If you didn't know them before, you ask any questions you have. Make sure that you trust this person and trust the environment that they're creating. And from there, just let go and surrender to the experience. As Terence McKenna says, once you've taken it, you've taken it. The best thing to do is to just go with it. Trust the gut instinct that you've had to sign up to this experience. Because what creates most of bad trips is resisting and fighting the experience. And it's kind of the same with life, because a lot of suffering comes up by our habit of fighting what is and resisting what is, and wishing it was different, and wishing the playlist was different, wishing any of the details. Actually, what I found is that enlightenment is the experience of deep acceptance of everything being exactly as it is. Everything is just so good as it is, and I'm in such deep acceptance and agreement. Everything is just right. It's just right, and it is what it is. So, pro tip, if you are to only remember one single thing from this entire video, apart from, two things. One, not doing psychedelics among people and environments that you do not trust if you don't want to have a bad trip. Number two, as soon as you decide to do it and you prepare as much as you can with choosing the facilitator, choosing your inner state, preparing physically and mentally before the experience, but also choosing the environment, remember to surrender. Remember that you've chosen this, and whatever it is, it's going to be exactly what you need it to be. And also remember that it is going to end. Sometimes it feels as if this is going to last forever. It won't. Research whichever psychedelic it is that you're sitting with, know how long it lasts, more or less. This is how long it's going to last. If you're taking mushrooms, it lasts 4 to 6 hours. Say you're taking it at like 1 p.m. You know for a fact that by 8 p.m. it's going to end. If you're sitting with ayahuasca, by X amount of time, it will be over. So remember that. Diet is another thing. You can prepare your body physically before the experience. It depends on which psychedelic you're taking. And there's quite a lot of debate in the psychedelic community about how much this matters or not. In a nutshell, if you are sitting with ayahuasca, the shamans or whoever it is that you're doing it with should give you instructions about the way that their tradition is handling the dieta or the preparation for ayahuasca. So consult with them. If it's something like mushrooms or LSD or MDMA, it's always recommended to stop eating for around 4 hours before. I would not want you to be starving so much that it takes you out of your journey. So if you need to have fruit around you, definitely have plenty of water. But if you need to have a snack even closer to the time or during the trip, that's okay. And often you might find that you think you're eating a lot, but you've actually eaten very little because your perception of everything is a bit altered. So have a snack if you need to have a snack, but always consult with the person that's facilitating for you or the medicine that you're doing. For some things, the diet is affecting the experience more than others. As a general rule of thumb, obviously decrease sugars and heavy fats and alcohol, and it's just pretty much common sense. Now, regarding the external environment, it's also kind of common sense. What would you like to have to be in order to fully surrender and enjoy? Maybe it's gonna be cleaning the house, tidying up the house if you're planning to do it indoors. Maybe sometimes I like to get myself flowers. Preparing a meal before time, it's gonna be delicious to have a home cooked meal for the end of your journey, and you will most likely not be in the mood to cook after a psychedelic journey. So it's really nice to know what ingredients are in. A soup it tends to be a good idea. If you download my free guide in the description, I even go into like foods that are more psychedelic friendly, post psychedelics, and what's not. So I don't want to make this video too long because I respect your time and my time. But yeah, if you are staying at home, how can you make your home beautiful and comfortable? Like cleaning it, creating a comfy environment, maybe with like blankets and pillows and fluffy things, or having your favorite objects. You can create a little altar with either pictures or crystals or something symbolic for you that could create a nice association for you during the journey. Choose an environment that you know, that you've been before, that you know it's going to be quiet and undisturbed. Ideally, have access to a bathroom. Bring plenty of water and maybe some fruit to have with you. In the free guide that I'm linking in the description below, there's also going to be which environment might be best as the setting for LSD and psilocybin mushrooms or truffles. So I highly recommend you download that. It's free, you guys. It's free. 2 tips for the road. Have as much of a predictable day as you can. You do not want to be disturbed. You do not want mail arriving. You don't want Amazon deliveries knocking on your door, or even throwing things and then the dogs start barking. Maybe if you have kids, maybe you want to have a babysitter for the day, or maybe you want to have, like, I don't know, your sister look after them while you go in a hotel or in a beautiful park and do it. Pro tip number 2, I would recommend not doing psychedelics for the first time by yourself. Always have a trusted friend or partner, ideally someone who has had psychedelic experiences before, because you want to feel like everything that comes up and everything that you do, whether that's laughing uncontrollably or crying uncontrollably, and I'm talking about high dose of psychedelics, right? I'm not talking about microdosing. Microdosing is sub-perceptual. No one knows that you've taken it, otherwise you've taken too much. But you want to feel held and supported in every cell of your body. You might need to scream and get something off your chest. You might be meeting God. You might be meeting your biggest enemy that you thought you would never think about again for the last 30 years. You might be weeping for hours and hours and hours, and that needs to be okay. You want to be held. Part of my training as a psychedelic coach was to inform my clients to normalize the abnormal. A lot of crazy shit is going to happen, and you want to feel as if all of it is okay. And all of it is part of it, and there's nothing wrong with you. And this is exactly the journey that you're meant to have. Now, I want to close this video with mentioning the most important thing out of this whole thing. In the whole conversation of how to avoid a bad trip is this: there is no such thing as a bad trip. The term bad trip has been created by people who do not know how healing works, because part of healing is to feel a lot of pain and go through it. I do not know how I can possibly feel all the joy and all the fun in the world if I do not allow myself to feel my pain and my grief and everything that I've built coping mechanisms around avoiding. And actually, I was in Burning Man summer of 2025, which at the time of this video is like 3 weeks ago. Yeah, I'm still processing. Can't wait to speak to my therapist this week. So I had the most painful journey of my entire life. It was centered around death And if you're interested in that, let me know and I'll send you the newsletter I send and more information about it. But it was a very, very, very painful journey. And in my experience, I've been journeying with psychedelics since 2017, maybe. And it was the most profound and life-changing journey of my entire life. And I was weeping and crying for hours because to me now, pain is not a problem. And I'm available. I'm available to feel all the pain. I'm available to feel all of it in order to move through to the other side. I am committed to self-actualizing. I am committed to a life of becoming ever more awake and making the most of this life. And I want to feel all of it. And I've always been a seeker. I've always wanted to understand and feel into the meaning of life. My business, my brand is called the Alex Experience because I didn't want to just study things. I wanted to get my hands dirty and travel the world and immerse in cultures and learn the languages and understand through experience. And I still am. And healing with psychedelics is this hands-on healing. You're not reading books about trauma, you're actually going through it. And a lot of it is not making sense, but making sense is something that the mind wants to do. And it's not all about understanding, you guys. It's about feeling. And feeling is healing, as cliche as that is. So I realized, and I've learned from Gabor Mate after taking compassionate inquiry, his psychotherapeutic approach, his training for a year. A few years ago, I learned that when I allow myself to feel my sadness and not have to run away from it anymore, that increases my breadth, my aperture for feeling in general. And when I allow myself to grieve and be with it and not try to avoid it and not wish for it to end and not regret that I've taken this psychedelic and now I'm having a horrible experience, but actually be with it, fully present with it, knowing that I'm not gonna be consumed by it. I'm not gonna die because I am sad. I've got myself. And I am not the sadness. Sadness is a process happening within me. Pain is something I can hold because I know who I am and I know how to hold my own pain. And in fact, that's my greatest power. When I do that, when I'm aware now that this is the process to healing, I can feel the pain. And then 2 weeks later, I found myself wowing at the blue sky and the miracle of life and the gift to be alive that no one can explain. And I'm so deeply grateful and in awe and in ecstasy, and I can feel those much deeper as well because I've allowed myself to feel pain and I got better at feeling. I grew in humanity. I became a human that feels more and more. There's no such thing as a bad trip. There are challenging trips, yes. And if your intention for doing psychedelics, for doing this work is to heal, is to grow, is to become more and more of who you really are. And it's this shedding of who you're not and this becoming an updated version of yourself. It's like a flower that every year I felt as if with my husband, when I met him, I used to say, I'm afraid of losing myself in this relationship. And now I realize 6 years later that it's like a flower. Who I thought I was, a more immature, younger version of me has just dissolved. And now I'm this updated version of myself that has been created through our union, through us being together. And actually me now is more me and I feel more myself and I like being more myself. And that is the path of maturity, of healing, of growth. And it's, for me, the most rewarding and the most meaningful path to be on. But if I had the experience that I had in Burning Man 7 years ago, I would have freaked out. I would not be able to have that experience. I would have definitely called it a bad trip to start with. I would be afraid of psychedelics. I don't even know what I would have done. And in fact, my psychedelic journeys years ago were really like happy clappy Pollyanna, as a friend of mine says. They were much more light and entertaining. And now I do cry about my mom's pain a lot and the pain I picked up and the sadness I picked up and how much of a problem I felt as a child. And I'm so here for it. I'm like, show me more. Take me to the bottom of the well. That's what I signed up for. a life of depth, a life that gets deeper and deeper and never ends. Take me to the depths and show me more and give me more. And that, as paradoxical as it sounds, or it also kind of makes all the sense, the more I do that, the more I feel lighter and liberated and more on purpose and inspired to share this work. And I'm a better coach to the people I support, and I have more clarity of vision and who I am and where I want to go. And life is just ever more meaningful. So there is no such thing as a bad trip. Everything is exactly as it needs to be. And very often we set an intention for a journey. And actually, funny, ironically, my intention for that journey that I had in Burning Man was to have the best day of my life with my husband. And my whole journey was around feeling a ton of pain. And that's the thing, that often we have this intention of like, I just want to have a great experience. I want to laugh my ass off. I want to have all these amazing, inspiring downloads. But then the journey will show you what's in the way of that intention. And maybe me to have the best day of my life might be like level 10. And then it showed me level 2. And I might need to take psychedelics more often and do a bunch of work in between. Like I said, I'm pre-booking my therapist for like intensive care for the upcoming months, and I'm not in a rush because I have the rest of my life to do this. And intentions are not like placing a cocktail order at a bar. Long gone are the days that I expect one psychedelic journey to meet my intention or to fix my life. I'm actually so much more patient with healing these days that it disturbs some people that are not yet at the point of learning that sadness is nothing to run away from and nothing to control or stop. You know, you might have seen a baby, or you might have been the baby or a kid that would cry, and your parents might have said, don't cry, please stop, please don't be sad, I don't know what to do with it. And we've learned that sadness is not okay, but learning how to be sad, how to have a bad trip, how to navigate things not going the way we wanted them to, how to stop grabbing onto life and wishing that only this certain outcome comes out of this is such a limiting way of being. And it's very constricting and suffocating. And in fact, what a gift, what a hack to allow things to be as they are. And if there's pain, let there be pain. Let there be pain, because the only way out is through. In fact, to me, this was the best day of my life, because it was kind of like a rite of passage, like a bar mitzvah, where I went in with a childlike agnia, childlike innocence and unawareness, and I came out of it more of an adult, more conscious, more aware. And my consciousness, the door of perception, expanded. And so to me, a day is the best day of my life as long as I become ever more awake and remember who I am and become more of myself. So as I love to say, here's to a life worth living, worth dying for. So I'm gonna conclude it here. I hope this has provided clarity. Download the free 6-page set and setting guide, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions or thoughts based on this video. Have a good day, everyone.